Amid the coronavirus outbreak and the lockdown that has since ensued, what seems to have come to the fore is this tussle between the centre and various states, particularly with the issue of migrants who are leaving the states or places where they are working to go back to their villages. Now, why is there such lack of coordination between the centre and state? Did the centre at all consult or keep various state governments in the loop before announcing the lockdown? Is what we're going to look at in this edition of Government Matters. Do remember, we've come to you live, so please send us your questions. My colleague Moushmi Gupta, who tracks the government for us, is with me today and she'll be happy to answer them. Moushmi, what is this confusion? I mean, there seems to be massive confusion, complete lack of cohesion between the centre and states.
Yeah, Ruhi, I mean, somewhere down the line, there has been a lack of planning, in going before announcing this lockdown,
right?
Because migrant laborers are there across cities in India,
right?
Is a known thing. It's
right.
Not that they have suddenly cropped up after the lockdown.
Sure.
So, and the fact that Prime Minister and also senior ministers, cabinet ministers and the senior bureaucrats in Delhi were talking with video conferencing with the counterparts in the state. But somewhere down the line, there is a lack of coordination because, before announcing, Prime Minister Modi made an announcement about Janta curfew on March 19th. Then he announced the full lockdown, right, on March 24th. So before that, there seems to be no planning as to how to deal with these migrant laborers.
Right. So, Moushmi, just to try and understand, we know that health is a state subject. We also know that law and order is a state subject. I mean, in this case, the centre did invoke the National Disaster Management Act, which gives it power over states. But was that enough to just invoke it? What was the kind of conversation that happened before the lockdown was announced by PM Modi? Was there adequate discussion with various state governments?
They were discussing, the centre was discussing with states, but the discussions were more on, how to ensure that essential commodities, supply of essential commodities don't get disrupted,
right.
The supply chain doesn't get disrupted, so that people in general are not inconvenienced. But there seemed to have been no planning, like I said earlier, about the lakhs and lakhs of migrant laborers, right, across Indian cities, because even before announcing a lockdown, you should have had a plan in place as to how do you deal with them. If you're saying that nobody is going to come out, then you have to ensure that these migrant laborers, the respective state, this kind of communication had not happened with the state.
Right.
The centre had not said anything on this regard, as in how states are supposed to deal with it. Should they be provided free food? Should they be provided, people who, are living at construction sites, should they be allowed to stay there?
Right.
Obviously, it didn't happen.
Right. There's also been confusion about what states should do about migrants coming back. Was that a point of discussion? Say, for instance, people going back from Delhi to Rajasthan. There's been confusion about whether the state government will let them in. The state government's doing flip-flops. So clearly shows complete lack of strategy.
Yeah, there is a lack of strategy, and also, Ruhi, when this exodus first started after March 24th, after the nationwide, right, lockdown started. So, in Karnataka, for instance, in Maharashtra, in the railway station, because along with the lockdown, the bus and train services were suspended.
Right.
But the morning after, there were hundreds and thousands of migrant laborers in the railway stations in Maharashtra also, in Mumbai also, and the railway officials were forced to run the train to, right, carry them.
Right.
So, because in the state there was nothing till then. Now states have started, after the centre's announcements, the state has started coming up with packages, relief packages, and
right,
measures to ensure that migrants stay where they are. But
right,
initially there was no such thing that had happened.
So I will come back to this point later about what has happened ever since this confusion, this pandemonium broke. Migrants have been, we saw scenes of Anand Bihar, a bus terminal in Delhi, a frightening scene. So we'll come back to that, but I'll take a couple of viewer questions. The first question, I'm sorry I don't have the viewer name with me, is do you think both the state and central governments have failed completely in handling this?
up to some extent, yes, the fault lies, there is a failure on the part of both the center and the state to envisage the magnitude of the problem. And there was this instance, Ruhi, where the Karnataka police, they had to so they stopped a truck and they found that some hundreds of laborers were hiding inside them, and they were trying to migrate to Rajasthan. So I mean, this is a very sorry state of affairs.
So Moushmi, just to understand, because there is also a political connotation to center-state relations in this country. The PM may talk about cooperative federalism, but there is a political aspect to it as well. Has there been a greater gap between the center and states ruled by opposition parties as compared to state ruled by BJP?
I think, there has been a gap across. For instance, UP government had said that they are going to send 1,000 buses. I mean, only a handful of buses had come up in Anand Vihar terminal, and we saw all those pictures on TV screens. Thousands of laborers, gathered at the bus terminal. So similarly, Rajasthan had said that they will send buses, but the state government officials are saying that they didn't hear anything from the center, and the states had apparently offered earlier that they will, they will arrange for buses to pick up the stranded passengers, but they are saying that they didn't hear anything from the center. So somewhere down the line, it's not only about center and non-BJP ruled states, even the BJP ruled states, there has been a gap when it comes to, and there seems to be a lack of a coordinated approach to handle this.
There's a question from Ashish. Have the governments been caught unawares because of under-reporting? So I'm assuming the viewer means under-reporting of cases or under-reporting of the number of migrants. Could be either.
Yeah, at this point we can't say if the government has been caught unawares, because of under-reporting of cases, because we are not testing that much. So if you're not testing that much, our figures are not going to be, we won't know how many positive cases we have if we are not, testing in large numbers.
Vipin Pandey wants to know, can there be a committee formed with chief secretaries and PMO so that coherence can be achieved?
The center has already formed a couple of, not one. Yesterday, Ruhi, as you know, the government set up 11 MPART committees, and the job of this MPART, the mandate of this MPART committee is to coordinate with the states on different issues, hospital management, availability of beds, availability of isolation ward, listen to the grievances of the public. So there has been the government has set up these MPART committees. Besides, the government has tasked ministers, 42 cabinet ministers. They have been given 15 districts each, and their only job is to coordinate with the local administration there and get all the details about the issues that they are facing, if there is any coordination issue with the center. But all this thing has happened in the last 3 or 4 days.
So it's a case of waking up a little too late to the kind of disaster that was waiting to happen. JB Singh wants to know, is the problem that serious in India that the whole country had to be locked? Why not just those districts reporting cases? I think it's the whole idea of locking down hotspots instead of locking down the entire country is what this viewer's question is.
The whole idea of a lockdown was that because there is large-scale migration happening intrastate as well as interstate. So to stop that only, the government had come up with a lockdown. So I don't think just locking down a few hotspot districts
would have achieved the purpose.
Would have achieved the purpose.
And also the kind of country that India is, it's very difficult to just lock down hotspots and assume that there
would be no movement
would happen. Sanjeev wants to know, can the center not learn from the Kerala government for better relief strategy?
Kerala government has handled it well even now. Also because they had earlier, they had that Nipah virus epidemic, they had that. So they had come up with measures they have effectively tackled that. So Kerala is prepared, but even, at the central level, they have done stuff. It's not that they have not come up with any measures, but there has been the response of the center has been a bit disjointed. Now, of course, in the last couple of days, things seems to be falling in place, but there still are gaps.
There is a question from Sameer. Why is the government doling out relief packages? Why did they use the why they should have used it to improve infrastructure. For instance, use MGNREGA, workers could have been paid more and construct hospitals. I'll tell you the fundamental problem with this is that the labor material ratio of NREGA is 60-40, which means it is a labor intensive scheme. Anything that is done has to be labor intensive, hence constructions of hospitals, schools, buildings, etc. has always been a problem under NREGA. You have to meet that labor material ratio, which, as you know, with hospitals will not happen. It will require more material, will require machinery, will be less labor intensive. But Moushmi, I think the larger question is about relief packages and what kind of relief packages are being doled out. And I know you've done a story about the kind of relief packages that's been announced. So let's discuss that a little bit.
The government, Ruhi, I think on March 26, they came up with Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced a 1.72 lakh crore economic relief packages only targeting the poor and migrant laborers. And there was a slew of measures, starting from, enhancing the entitlement for the poor. Right now they are allowed to buy 5 kg of wheat or rice, so they increased it to 10 kgs, 10 kgs a month. And then, they also, for NREGA workers, their wage was increased from 182 rupees to 2002 rupees. For Ujjwala beneficiaries, the government said that they will provide free cylinders for 3 months, 3 months at a stretch. So there was a slew of measures across various category of poor who as of now were also getting benefit, but now the government will ensure that these people will get the benefits in the next 3 months. For instance, PM Kisan, under PM Kisan, a farmer is given 6,000 rupees a year. So the government said that 2,000 rupees will be paid in advance in the beginning of April. So this is for the poor and migrant laborers. Then again on March 27th, when the RBI announced that they announced they deferred all loan repayments, including home loans taken from financial institutions until June 30th. So you don't have to pay any loan, and it won't be seen as basically a default. So now, Moushmi, looking at the larger question that we've been asking today, and once the center-state tussle has been exposed, and it's really a sorry state considering the kind of pandemic we are staring at and the kind of lockdown we are under. What steps have been taken by both the center and the states to reach out to each other once we've realized that it's a problem which requires better coordination? And how do you see things going forward? Ruhi, yesterday this Union Cabinet Secretary Rajiv Gupta had a meeting with the Home Ministry officials and other stakeholders. Following the meeting, they directed all the state governments to seal all the borders and not allow any migrant laborer to cross over from one state to another. And then they also directed the state governments that the onus is on them to provide accommodation, fooding, lodging, everything free of cost to the laborers till the time the lockdown is in place. The state governments, various state governments have on their own also have come up with measures. For instance, the Noida administration, the Noida district magistrate came up with a circular saying that no landlord can charge rent from a labor or somebody who doesn't has a job, who is sitting at home because of the lockdown. So he has said that no rent needs to be paid. And also Noida authority is now they are saying that for all these migrant laborers who are there in Noida and the adjoining areas, so they would be provided shelter on the land that was acquired by the Yamuna Expressway by the JP groups. So different states have come up with different measures.
But the larger point being that all this should have been thought out and discussed and declared before the lockdown was announced, instead of it being a post facto.
It's a post facto thing once it has happened, and once the problem has hit them on the face, and they know that there's no running away from it.
And the problem already has happened. We saw there were the numbers of people gathered at the
the way it has all unfolded. It seems that the government just completely forgot about
this particular section and this particular issue that could have cropped up. We're completely out of time, but I'll take one last viewer question. It's from JB Singh. Will there now be a labour shortage as labourers will refuse to return due to the pandemic?
Yes, for some time now there will be a problem, because the laborers they are not going to return anytime soon until the lockdown is called off. So till that time there will be a shortage of laborers, and it will affect various services, I mean, across sectors.
Well, Moushmi explaining to us in an all-rounded way the center-state tussle, the center-state tensions, the center-state lack of coordination that has played out, that has panned out ever since this lockdown was announced, particularly as far as the issue of migrants is concerned. But she's also telling us the steps that have been taken since then, and the steps that both the center and the state have tried to take to address the problem. Thank you so much for watching this live edition of Government Matters. Do keep subscribing to our YouTube channel and watching us.